Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, this week we're going to be going over some information about Amendments 1 and 2 that probably is going to be very eye-opening for a lot of you and maybe help you make your decision on how to vote on this.
Thanks, old pal.
Also this week, we'll be showing you where you can get an online voter guide that shows you about every single person running for the Kentucky State Legislature, voting records, who's sending the money and all that, and I hope you'll find that very helpful. First, let's talk about Amendment 1, and let's just kill any confusion there is about this right now.
You didn't tell me you were gonna kill it.
Yes, let's kill any confusion about this. Right now, under Kentucky law, it says who is allowed to vote. However, there's a loophole in that, and it doesn't say who is not allowed to vote. And those who would want to let illegals vote in our elections could use this loophole. That is why Amendment 1 is closing that loophole to say you must be a citizen to vote, and if you're not a citizen, you cannot vote. And it closes that loophole, ensuring that only U.S. citizens are able to vote in our elections. It's a great amendment, and I hope you'll support Amendment 1. Now let's talk about Amendment 2. There's a lot of lies going on around about this amendment.
You better cut it out right now or I'll pound you.
Yes, better cut it out. This is the school choice bill, and I think this is a good amendment, and I'm going to show why every single homeschooler and Christian school in Kentucky should be supporting this. Several people have contacted me in the past few days worrying that if Amendment 2 passes, it's a sneaky way for the government to get control over private education, including Christian schools and homeschools. I keep a very close eye on anything that would do that, and this amendment is not a threat. And I will now show you why this is not a threat already anchored down in Kentucky law. Here's the law that deals with this. It is Kentucky Revised Statute 141.520. Notice what it says. Nothing in KRS 141.500 to 141.528 shall be deemed to limit the independence or autonomy of an education service provider. That's you, homeschooler or Christian school, or to make the actions of an education service provider the actions of state government. So some people are like, well, this is going to make us lose some of our independence on what we can do. It specifically says already in Kentucky law that this will not make you lose any of your independence. Notice the second part of this law. It says, nothing in KRS 141.500 to 141.528 shall be construed to expand the regulatory authority of the state, its officers, or any county school district to impose any additional regulation of education service providers beyond those necessary to enforce the requirements of the EOA program. So you see, it specifically says that this cannot be construed to expand any regulations at all by the state. So we don't have to worry about extra regulations coming on of us because of Amendment 2. The third part of this law says, an education service provider, again, that's the private school, the Christian school, the homeschooler, an education service provider that accepts payment from an EOA pursuant to KRS 141.500 to 141.528 is not an agent of the state or federal government. Had some people contacting me worrying, well, if we do this, then they're actually taking control of my school and I work for them. No, it specifically says that is not the case. The final part of this law says, an education service provider shall not be required to alter its creed, practices, admissions policy, or curriculum in order to accept payments from an EOA. So it specifically says you don't have to change what you're teaching, the way you're teaching it, or anything. Now, with all this being said, let's review. You do not lose your independence There are no extra regulations. You do not become an agent of the government, and you still control the curriculum. So this is what the law says. It was written in 2021 by a group of conservative Republicans who wanted to ensure that any future laws that may come down the pike, such as Amendment 2 dealing with education, would never be able to infringe upon the liberty or add any regulations to private schools, such as Christian schools and homeschools. So we've got those safeguards already passed. And remember, Amendment 2 doesn't actually give any money to anybody. All it does is allow the legislature to make laws to fund other than public schools. They're still under all their requirements to fund the public schools, but now they could also use other money to help offset the cost of other forms of education. So it's a good amendment, and I hope you'll be supporting it. The other thing I want to mention this week is the voter guide. We have elections coming up, and not just for president, for all the members of the Kentucky House of Representatives, for half of those in the Kentucky State Senate. So if you would like to know, well, where does this person stand on the issues? What's their voting record? I have an online voting guide I can recommend to you. On this site, you'll see it's the iVoter Guide. They'll show you the district, who it is, their name, their picture, their political party. You can click to see their voting scorecard, who's contributing to their campaign, who's endorsing them, answering questions on the key issues. And then there's a little meter here that rates them based on their voting record and answers on whether they are liberal to conservative. It is an incredibly handy voting guide. I hope that you'll make reference to it. Again, I will put the link to this right in the description of this video so you can go and get that. If you're one of our radio listeners, you're listening online, just visit Patriot Point on YouTube and you can get this link directly to this voter guide for Kentucky voters, and I hope that'll be a help to you. Before we sign off this week, I want to mention our sponsor. This week's program is sponsored by the novel The Coming One. In a cashless society, data is total control. This is available on Amazon, and I hope that you will check that out. Well, that's the news we have for this week, Patriots. So until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.
Oh, you didn't tell me you were gonna kill it.